Shen was going to be able to ult Annie, but I kind of paced back and forth, and really if you get in a situation like that where you're like, oh, I don't really know if I should be down here, just leave. Just because at worst you were wrong and you could have stayed, but you didn't die. So right there, like I said, I definitely should have left. But some of the champions that give Mordekaiser problems mid, at least from what I've seen, if Ezreal's good, I've had some problems with him just because he's got a really long range, and Mordekaiser's range on a Siphon is a decent range, I guess, but it's not anywhere near Ezreal's. But again, that kind of means that you have to be facing against a good Ezreal. And really, when you are, the biggest tip I can give is just make sure there are always creep between you and him, because your Siphon can go through his skill shots can't. The other champion actually that gives me the biggest problems mid is Cho'Gath. So actually, if you play Cho'Gath and you see a Mordekaiser and you think he's going mid, you should go mid too, because while you aren't going to be able to kill him, he won't kill you either. And I had a few games with Cho'Gath where I actually sat in mid, and we sat there, and both side towers were down, and I don't remember how long the game was, but it was a pretty lengthy game. And we just, neither tower had taken any damage because we couldn't kill each other. And so, gonna go ahead and explain this one too, since my history already here. I should not have done what I did there, and I got extremely lucky that Annie didn't kill me. There was, and actually I think I type it out here, yeah, there we go. I shouldn't have tower dove. That tower did a lot of damage to me, and again, it comes down to being greedy. I did that a couple times in this game, but you need to really, when you're done with this, and this is where recording helps a lot, and why I wish so much that Riot would put in replays, is that you could actually go back and look and see where Greed got you killed. And right there, by all rights, I should have died. I shouldn't have run through the tower with no shield. It might have been a little bit of a different story if I had shield, but... So, the other champions, like I said, Cho'Gath is a problem in mid for you because you're not going to kill him because his passive allows him to regain health and mana as he kills creep. So, and you're not going to be able to stop him from killing creep. If he's got, usually he's going to have enough health that you can just stand there and take your shots too. And so this is a little bit of foresight into what's getting ready to happen, but I'm getting ready to die, and it's going to be one of those weird situations where, kind of, looking back on it, I see what the problem was, but at the time, I missed it. So Kog'Maw ends up killing me, and we're just going to kind of watch this unfold. You can see he got the slow on me. I'm going to run around. I was kind of afraid that some of the other champions top were coming back, but it's just me and Kog'Maw. Now all of a sudden I realize we're alone. I'm like, oh hey, I can kill him. And so we go in, he ignites me, and then he gets his... Actually, I think he had what's coming. And the point is that I died there. In fact, Kog'Maw ripped me apart. So thinking about why did that happen, if you remember earlier I said one of Mordekaiser's strengths is his shield basically gives you like extra health, and it's almost health on demand. Well, the problem is that since I didn't have my shield up, everything Kog'Maw was doing was to me. And as you saw, I don't really have a lot of health, so without my shield, there wasn't much I could do. I ended up dying. And then the other problem with that ended up coming back. Shen was paying attention and ulted me. And so even if I would have been able to get Kog'Maw down, he would have been ulted, so I would have had to burn Shen's shield too. And basically the whole point there being that you kind of need to make sure that you're paying attention to a lot of variables to be good at this game. One of them, of course, being the other team and what they're doing. So, but yeah, I shouldn't have died there, and I did. But we're going to go ahead and move on to some of the abstract stuff that I wanted to talk about. And things like, we'll just go ahead and start with laning. And there's a couple different phases of the game. But there's the beginning phase, which is actually before you even get into the game and deciding which champions you're going to run with. And then there's the laning phase, which is basically when you are, it's 2 top, 1 mid, 2 bot lane, and you're trying to push back and forth and just get a couple maybe early kills or push back one of the and basically at this point establish lane dominance. This is where you get to control the flow. Hopefully, if you've got lane dominance, you hold them back to the tower, and if they're tower hugging, it's a good thing. You want them to be basically hugging as much as they possibly can. The next phase is mid game, and this is where a lot of the team fights really start to happen. This is where basically you get just roving bands of team fights. And then you have, of course, have an end game. This is where you probably push them back, or been pushed back to your towers, or the whole idea being that there's not much left in. And as far as when the lane or phase changes happen, it's kind of hard to say. So generally speaking, it seems like laning phase is over after the first tower goes down. Most of the time is when you'll start seeing like gank squads. And the reason for that being that the way this game is set up with the 3 lanes, each progressive layer of towers you pull down makes it harder to get that next layer. And it may not look like it because, I mean, the towers all have the same health, but the reason why is actually because the distances between the towers get closer. So once you push the lane down, it's easier for them to defend the remaining towers. And that's why a lot of times when people get upset that maybe the other team is pushing really hard, I kind of try to not get upset about that, because then the rest of them become a little bit easier to kill. The first couple towers aren't really that difficult. And really, if you get the choice, in case you're wondering why do we always push mid, everyone always pushes mid, and it might just be something since you've always seen it that way, you assume that you push mid first if you can. The reason for that actually is because then, if you can push mid all the way back, the outside lanes are easier to destroy because of what I had said earlier, where the distances are far enough. If mid lane's gone, that means that they have to split up between 2 farthest distances, versus if you push one of the side lanes all the way back, it's just easier to guard one of the mid ones. And once the team fight game starts happening, this is kind of where it gets really interesting. So you start seeing weird dynamics, and I started seeing some teams where like we have a lot of AoE, and maybe we weren't doing so good individually, but all of a sudden in team fights we use the shield. That's because we just damage everything. You get other kind of strange dynamics like. I enjoy playing with pure tank teams because really it's when you're tank, because once you start tanking, everyone is pretty hard to kill. So in a team fight, it's really hard for them to single someone out to kill, and a lot of times they'll actually people will mess up, and there just won't be any focus fire, and then everyone gets out alive, and so that kind of stuff's really fun. But the team fighting dynamics, this is why a lot of people want a tank, and really. My whole deal before was I had said that Mordekaiser is not a tank, Garen is not a tank, and my reason for that was because unlike Shen and Rammus who can taunt, or Blitz who can pull people off of a squishy person, Mordekaiser can't. Really, I can't do anything like that as Mordekaiser. I can't save you. I can't all of a sudden, bust out one of my crazy skills and then you just don't die. The closest I have to that's a shield, which that just gives you a little bit of magic resistance armor. But I'm starting to lean more towards Mordekaiser is kind of a tank, and I can see where Garen and stuff's a tank, but it's not so much tanking as they can initiate. So that's the class of, I've actually seen a guy with someone mentioning that, and it's more of they're a soak. And basically, the point is that I can walk into a fight and just start taking hits. And usually what you'll see is that a lot of times in team fights, once someone kind of zones in on this is the person they start using abilities on, they don't really want to waste abilities on other people, if that makes sense. So even though I can't really taunt you, since you started using abilities against me, you're going to continue to use them against me because you don't want to make that first ability that you use to waste. But people like Amumu, I think, are true tanks. Because that group crowd control, no one's getting away. Everyone hates it when Amumu shows up, and he can stun and slow you down versus what I can't do as Mordekaiser. One thing that you saw, if you go back, you saw earlier, that was kind of funny, and Annie's not doing it now, was Annie had stopped Tibbers. And basically at that point I didn't know where she went, but this time I was actually able to follow Tibbers, which she still got away because she got all the way back into the base. But if you have a pet or something like that, you can use them for some sort of deception. You know, send them a different route or something to make it easier for you to run back. And that just kind of goes back to some of the game time decisions of just generally smart play, things to be aware of, trying to gain any advantage that you can over your opponents. And one of the last things that I really wanted to touch on, and this will probably cover the rest of the video, which I know it's pretty long, but I think that this is extremely important, and that is team communication and map awareness. And they go kind of hand in hand. And I've seen a lot of times, so you always see people call MIA. It's like, oh, so-and-so is missing. That in its own right is pretty good, because if you can give people the awareness that the person you were laning against is no longer in your lane, then everyone should respond accordingly and understand that he could be anywhere. Granted, even better if you can give a general idea where he's going. So maybe, let's say top was pushing really heavy, and all of a sudden he didn't piece, but you kind of see that it looked like they might have been going top. Call, you know, mid MIA, possibly going top. And likewise, it's actually just as important to point out when they come back, because if I'm on edge because I think that a champion might be up there with me, and then I can't stay on edge the rest of the game. So at some point you've got to say, you know, and I might not want to pay attention to the game now and see that they return. So you can say, you know, they just say re, which I've started to see a lot, or ping them, or they're back, or just give some way to let the person know that, hey, the person that has left is now back. But on that same breath comes map awareness, and this is things that I've talked about before, actually, in my things not to do video with Mordekaiser. Like, you really should pay attention to the map. Like, ideally, you'll know before the person ever types out. You'll know when someone is AFK, because you'll see that they are on the minimap, and if you don't see them on that minimap, you'll know that you need to be a little bit more on edge. But this becomes really important, like in this phase right now, where I'm pushing pretty far on this top turret. On the minimap, I only see the couple mid, which means that other than the people that are dead, I know that I could have people coming around me, which it kind of, there we got lucky because someone had pinged that, oh hey, you know, Cogmo's on his way up. And sure enough, in this case, Fiddlesticks was too, so we ended up just leaving. Or no, actually, I don't know. Now she mentioned that, but the idea being that I needed to pay attention to understand that it probably wasn't safe for me to be up, because a lot of people pay attention to kill death ratio, which I do sort of, but not for the same reason that other people do. I do it more of, I don't care how many kills you got, it's how many deaths you got that is a concern to me. So I would rather have someone with 2 kills, no deaths, 10 assists, versus someone with 30 kills, or something. And the reason being that getting kills helps you, dying helps the other team and hurts our team. So yes, getting kills hurts their team, but if you get a kill and you die, a lot of times what happened was you just gave, say you get 3 of their teammates an assist and then 1 a kill. Well, you've given several of them gold, and then 1 person a lot of gold, and then experience if they're not leveled already. But if you get a kill, and if you're, you know, maybe we get the assist, but
misery loves
maybe
company.
not, maybe we're able to solo someone. If you solo somebody, that doesn't help us, sort of, because you're the only one getting the experience and the gold from that. Now, the advantage you get, of course, is that they're man down, and so, but that's the same thing where if you get a kill and then you die, you're basically just keeping the playing field level. And I would rather have someone who just doesn't die versus someone that gets a lot of kills. And so part of that map awareness idea, you saw I bought a bunch of wards, and I started changing some of my games because I've noticed that a lot of times people take a decent amount of time to set up, to prepare for a team fight, and so the more, if you can throw wards inside of travel lanes, you'll be much better prepared to stop people from catching you like on a team fight. So like right here, there's a ward at each side, so we can tell when someone's trying to flank us in mid, which the river's a very popular spot since it's a very fast way